font of new combobulation. The font of new combobulation. The font combobulation. The font of new combobulation. The font of new combobulation. Ooh, the font of new combobulation. 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 Ooh, font of new combobulation. The font of new combobulation. The font of new combobulation. The font of new under the the font of new the font of new combobulation. The font combobulation, new under the sun, new under the sun. I'm calling Nicola sus. I'm calling the ominous response. New under the sun known as one among the long of mouth of creation. You are new under the sun, come stunning. It might sound like you're someone. You are the renovation of this whole occupation. Imagination may become, but what the womb be nature, your creature creates awake. Come play today. Remain always this agent of change. Remain the nature, your creature aim. Aims. New under the sun came to play. You are the way it would always behave. Baby, 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 be nature, your creature awakes, be named, be known. Radio science brain. distortion fielding. We are the reality distortion fielding. The falsehood will tell you your eyes are evil for seeing. Ooh. The falsehood will tell you the press is our enemy. To cry fake news, yet preempt all remedy, betrays false identity. We are the reality distortion fielding. We are the reality distortion I am cogent to say now. I can report with full executive function that I am live from the Mystery Font in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the United States of America, on planet Earth. And it is the solstice, I believe. It feels it. Well met. Be one. Be named. Be known. You're one. New under the sun. How about it? How many of us, I wonder, not in terms of a test by any means, really a measure of what people find interesting, or I guess what makes it to people in enough rote or influence that it holds a shape as well. But what I'm wondering about is the new Colossus, specifically everything about the new Colossus. In particular, at this moment, I'm thinking about the poem that was written well before the statue was brought to America, written by Emma Lazarus toward raising the funds for the pedestal, I believe. And it was, after all, I believe, the new Colossus is essentially a celebration of emancipation, a celebration of freeing from bondage enslaved peoples that America had wrongly enslaved. It was a step. We called it emancipation. We claimed it held that, and it's what is yet to be fulfilled. And what of it? And it's no little what. We're dealing with systemic harm across communities and states and a nation. It's deep, white crime. 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 And much of this crime in the past, as well as happening more recently and now, certainly the crimes of enslavement, of all of the caustic and terroristic legislation of genocide, of residential schools, of Shanghaiing people. We dropped atomic bombs. We have been harm. And it is time, over 135 years, is it 137 years, 138 years now? It's long enough. It's been well over 100 years since the Statue of Liberty was erected as a celebration and world recognition and fraternity, nay sorority, with America, with a global community embracing America's step forward towards liberty. And she is walking out of chains. While there were protests on the day, because oddly there were very, very, very few women allowed onto the island for the celebrations at the dedication. And there were a number of people protesting as well due to, I think to call into question, it's my understanding that this was a statue of a white woman, more or less, or of a white person, seemingly, potentially. In terms of tracing a model, we may have a few people who may have modeled or been important to the visage, the body, the statue as she is. And it was about celebration of Lincoln for and America for emancipation. It wasn't yay immigration. That certainly came, and that certainly was a part of the idea as Beacon and in the New Colossus poem, and it is vitally important. It's just that the immigrants most closely linked to the message were maybe not white, unless this was unless this was, cosplay or a kind of a white saviorism. And I have been building this piece where liberty, as we know, if you've been here for previous workshop episodes of The Falsehood, this serialized development process of writing and honing things about aesthetic and functionality for the fostering of glow technology like glow spectrum with no other light source, once we're talking just glow decay, that I'm working with a bandwidth of glow spectrum and fostering that as practice for special effects, etc. And the falsehood is, they're linked in natural cohorts, and it's all one in terms of fostering a way to calmly examine and allow one another a nearer associative perch from which to look at like basic things, to try to find common language amidst dissolution of common ground and leveling with one another. That we have utterly almost broken trust in some way, and normalized that rupture as more entertaining and worthy than fostering kindness and trust, actual trust. Con artists need some kind of trust just to do their business. And we lose if we squirrel away connection, if we fail to somehow keep trust and connection maybe alive, to foster trust. It's important to know who's safe and who we can help be safe and be part of communities when there are concerns about extremism from far-right elements, and we are looking at the threat of Nazis essentially announcing they're coming. It seems like the Charlie Kirk Manifest Destiny Princess Cruise is, I think that's the GOP PC, is the Princess Cruise. It's the ultimate soft snowflake ride. And what we need to perceive, all of us, from where we're standing, I hope, myself included, is we're part of systems that we do need to care for. And there are ways to heal and hold people to accountable and pull people to heal when necessary, hold systems to account and take them apart if need be, or repurpose. And our resolve can be focused to build something that redeems things that we have lost. That is the, oh God, thank you for not dashing hope of that, so that you would let it go and let it in the future be dashed, because we will not need to necessarily lash back. I don't buy that fascism has to come or else. I think that the new Colossus is in fact far more resilient than any band of Nazi thugs in America could ever whelp up a whelpy-whoopy party. Because we are in some sense built on fairness and human kindness. There's people having a chance, and we haven't really lived up to that before. And I think maybe that's where we need to stop the snowflakery. We need to level up at the very, very basic level of pulling this together for ourselves totality-wise, as a country, as a nation. And you and your mind, the things that you offer, and just you being who you are, is enough. We don't punish, well, maybe we do punish flowers, I suppose, but we don't punish flowers for not carrying little backpacks to keep precious items off the ground in rainstorms and fill them up and get angry if the flowers fall over. We don't need to make little backpacks for flowers to be drying stands. We can allow flowers to, quote, do nothing, which is to respire and to florate, I suppose, to fluoresce, to live, to be. You doing nothing, in quotes, is you being yourself. And we shouldn't need to pay to live. And if we've built something here, then it is being robbed if we are being told there's less. In fact, when I was a child, not terribly long ago, starting in the 70s, I was often regaled from the television with punishing words towards myself or other people who thought those that spoke about making sure that people had some sort of investment in how things worked in society. And so too in terms of investment that paid back and gave workers a share of the pie, that gave everyone a seat at the table, a prospective potential seat at the table. If you want to run for city council, if you want to move to a new part of town, there's not some thing that says not for you though. I think the basic thing is we are capitalizing upon human need and vulnerability, and that's literally terrorism. It's unnecessary. And just like we decided that we frown upon abject colonialism of exactly the stolen wool blankets, mass murder, Jeffrey Dahmer fantasy apocalypse that was part of minting this country, and that hasn't really worn off in terms of what Hangover, Manifest Destiny, and all of that terrorism does to a place. What it does to a place is it gets us to a place where hundreds of years into this, we're arguing about whether or not there's a system of structural racism, as opposed to simply referring people who want to say it's bad to talk about racism to the police or, to public pillory. Because racism, like other forms of bigotry and intolerance, are cancer. It is time to stop playing around. Know Nazis. No. 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 The answer to the Charlie Kirk, Stephen Miller, Steve Bannon circle jerk is no. We are the reality of distortion. Fielding. Do it the hard way, and it's easy sailing. Do it the hard way, and it's hard to lose. Only the soft way has a chance of failing. You have to choose. I took the hard way when I tried to get you. You took the soft way when you said we'll see. Darling, now I let you do it the hard way now that you want me. You are more than a brain. You are the mind's innate permeant renovation. This is the science craving. Imagine it waving always and not in vain. Radio science, brain, imagination, aim. Imagination, aim. We are the mindness made this contain. Radio science brain. It is good to be aware, of course, if you have a story or art or idea you wish to participate within the font, it is perfectly reasonable to reach out at mysteryfont42@gmail.com, and kind and respectful communication will be met with the same, and I thank you for it. Good gracious, it's spacious, it's neighborly, make yes the nebulae. Oh, the hokum, the hokum. Well, let's simplify. I think it's becoming apparent, and I should make it very clear, possibly for myself as much as anyone else. I am convinced that I am having an episode of Mystery Font 42, Ope Intuit. I am having some stuff come up right now, and that is for real. And it's also working to share and pilot how I feel, or what I sense. That is, if we as human beings are also canaries, or we as artists are exemplary of that human capacity to see what is coming, or to sense danger, to be sentinel intelligence, to be kindness come that maps kindness about for everyone. This is the such and so forth I'm on about, at some length and discourse. Happenstance and Wordsworth and population distribution and gravity speculations and such. I have all the answers. I have all the answers. I think that from time to time, the hokum does come over a bit, and I like to shake it off. You see, the hokum of which I speak, yes, we can see just a form of its myriad. Its center screen, this green mist-like orbosity. It is, I think, well, it's the mindness here at the font, but it is reaction with hokum, for sure. Or a hokum-like part of myriad here at the font. That's what I'm going with at this moment. Let's simplify. I think we have present in the mind now that we're talking about nuts. We're talking about new under the sun. And that said, I think we're aware. I feel like it is present to the mind. I feel like we can see. The falsehood is part of what we're thinking about. So I am going to breathe out with hokum, and hokum just evaporated with the jump rope. I imagine, because that was a very quick, almost a puff out. You never do that. You never do that. Hokum. It's not an easy relationship, and hokum, I think, would agree. And there may be issues with sound that may be very well, let's just call that the commentary track from hokum, at times at least. I can bear responsibility for, at times, slightly lo-fi or potentially sub-professional par. And this is in fact important because I'm remembering it's okay, and it's difficult to get better slowly. It's difficult to want the forward motion of a Lear jet when I'm just getting my feet wet, or my appetite and a bib and a net. A net here at the font, in essence, because there is at times the barest of webs, maybe just a strand. Sometimes all we have is a strand. And if we are in utter darkness, if we are in truly a dim space, or our executive function or our perception, something is, or processing, if something is off and we're trying to figure out what's happening, following that thread of yarn we may find a ball, a gathering of thread of yarn. And it may be that that clue of thread, that clue in the yarn tells us something about where we might go or what's coming, and maybe even how to get out from under or from within and out, which an upside down, super sideways, the upside down cape, which fourth bandwidth, actually. To come out from the upside down green mirror that we are under, that I would refer to as the falsehood. The falsehood is within all of us. How do we perceive the falsehood? What does it mean if Donald Trump has executive dysfunction? Is that true? What is executive dysfunction? What is executive function? We are the reality distortion fielding. We are the reality distortion fielding. The falsehood will groom you not to question. Just believe. The falsehood can rob you of the choice you would perceive. We are the reality distortion fielding. We are the reality distortion fielding. The falsehood will tell you it's the one and only. The falsehood will tell you it's the one and only. The news from the mystery font includes that Donald Trump remains at large. It is Thursday, December 21st, 2023. This is the mystery font 42. I'm Tim Cameron. Donald Trump remains at large. That's right. Donald Trump remains at large. Everyone knows more people who know why it is significant and dangerous that the following is true than those who are unaware or have yet to understand the gravity of this statement. Donald Trump remains at large in contravention of standards of human decency and fair play and law and order. A man who is able to terrify people with seditious, sadistic, cruel, narcissistic punishment, so vile that no one wants to say no to him because he is a dark triad personality. And he leverages the deal for as much coercive, harmful control as he can muster. It is time to stop saying he wouldn't do that. It was never time to say he wouldn't do that. Cult leaders embarrass you by making you believe outlandish, embarrassing, mind-shattering nonsenses. How is it that a ring of people drinking babies' blood couldn't produce a smidgen of evidence? How is it that fraud so completely overwhelming that it was a snap to find evidence and leveraged against supposedly the best president ever is also the president so terrible at his job that in 2 months he couldn't produce one solitary scrap of legitimate evidence? How bad is he at stuff and life and stable, basic thinking anyway? Do people do his talking for him into an earpiece? How dependent is he? How aware is he anymore? But at essence, incompetence is one part of a spectrum. What are we looking at? What are we looking at? We are the reality distortion fielding. What do you see when you look at Donald Trump, who remains currently at large? Are you aware of being able to create, and are you able to create a distance to register the gravity and horror of what he may be saying at any minute? He has crossed the line and has declared himself essentially a Nazi trying to break Hitler's record. It's time to stop pretending he's not worse than we can imagine. It's time to wake up, because MAGA retrader greed is part of the codec of Jeffrey Dahmer fantasy horror in the frame of the bloodthirsty Marjorie Taylor Greene. MAGA retrader greed will sow apocalyptic harm if these people who have fallen to Nazi intolerance and hateful ideologies are not helped to healthcare and accountability for crimes, if and where they exist. And clearly there are crimes. Clearly hate crimes are on the rise. And this is not American. Americans may do terrible things sometimes, but we are not a nation about hatred. That has been our cancer. And it's time to take the training wheels off for white people. It's time to build a nation together. The reconstruction begins again. And Donald Trump remains at large. Someone who has threatened prosecutors, someone who made his lawyer target and essentially via proxy try to assassinate election workers. It is a miracle that a president targets are with us. It's a miracle that the abuse that he leverages at people again and again and again doesn't result in even worse harm. But the thing is, I think it does, because this kind of terrorism is meant to break our spirit. And that is the worst possible outcome we can face. That is why Project 2025 believes it can just announce it's coming. Like an abusive person who was ejected and told never to come back, and then announced, hey, there's an engagement. Well, let's speed date with a couple people. Come on. You don't want to stand in the way of our marriage. I want to make an honest woman out of you. What do you mean restraining order? We are looking at a dark triad predator. And we are looking at the Nazis. The Nazis and their Ku Klux Klan spawn this particle of diabolical hate turned inside out against people. People are victims of this, whether they are themselves doing harm to others and terrorizing, or whether they are being terrorized. Those are all victims, but obviously we need to hold people committing those crimes and doing that terror. We need to hold those people accountable, and we need to help them. All of those are human beings. All of those people who are being harmed and all of those who are harming are human beings, and if we let this go on, pardon me, if we let it go on, as opposed to stewarding a reknitting of trust and human fabric, and if we fail to take on intolerance now, if we fail to take this on, we are letting the planet fall and the habitat spit us out. Our planet of human culture can collapse easily if the habitat says patooey. And we're not that far from that kablooey. With oceans threatening to collapse, we are in need of executive function to focus on only that kind of import, and not whether someone's arcane religious back corner of a scrap door of a text says that somebody is bad if they do something that is hurting nobody, and therefore identitarian warfare is begun by lynch mob makers like Marjorie Taylor Greene. We are the reality distortion fielding, and we do not have to lay down for Nazis telling us they're coming or else. One, because that's completely insane. And two, because America eats Nazis for breakfast. The whole idea here is that we don't let that anymore. We don't let that be. We can foster a better world. And that means that we actually look at all of the questions in this. We know that it's far worse. It's not a thing of it wasn't so bad. It was definitely that bad. And only cowards would fail to process apartheid. At long last, is America just a nation of cowards and thieves? Because only a nation of cowards and thieves would run from balancing the books they are profiting from. It's time for us to stop acting like Donald Trump is the most American person here. It's time for us to reverse this planet, Superman. How do we foster actual trust? Because in a world where the president tells us it is smart to be ready to level the other person, we will perish if we do not level with one another. Welcome to the mystery font. And what on't? What upon it? What, a sonnet? Claret? Monty? Hugh? Eponymous. I'm going to decrease the MTG in the room. There's a bit of a resonance. Let's... And... release. Again, the news here on Thursday, December 21st, 2023. The news today: Donald Trump remains at large. Donald Trump remains at large. That's right. The man who targeted and attempted to kill election workers in America via proxy. This stochastic terrorist we have been, every one of us on earth, and certainly everyone in America, in an abusive relationship with for 8 years, remains at large. Our American abuser remains at large. Donald Trump? What I'm saying, Donald. Well, well, some people are saying that I guess that maybe he lies a bit. He could be. Well, gosh, could he be? Could that be? Gosh, golly. That's a big swing. I mean, what is that? I mean, if I think about it, I suppose it does seem like, whenever there's something we wonder about, we say, hey, we say, Donald, what's that bouncing ball? He's not really very good at tuning into that ball and talking about it at all. He doesn't want to be where that ball all is at ball. He does not play ball. We are dealing with a confidence artist. The first person called confidence artist was called that because he was known to approach savvy New Yorkers and making himself seem their better or equal. And after eliciting some sense of rapport, he would prey upon their kindness. For human need is sacred. Human need is absolutely sacred. And therefore, who would be predatory to human need? Well, verity, truth be told, it is baked into the fabric of our capitalism. And so we are all narcissists, just as Malcolm X once said that all Americans are racist, because we are living in a racist construct, essentially. And later had slightly different things, or adaptations, or growth about those ideas, potentially, but it's a valid and well registered and noted, wise to be noted, note about this American experiment that we have affected ourselves with this pernicious cancer of white supremacist patriarchal terror. And just like COVID decimated our fabric so much that we're really not getting pain signals anymore from parts of our fabric that we normally would be in touch with, and we just don't feel anything, but we don't know something's gone. We're not registering how much damage has been done, and indeed how much damage has been done to executive function. And Donald Trump, well, Donald Trump remains at large. Well, I guess that is. But wait, it sounded like I was saying Donald Trump is the falsehood. I guess I've kind of never seen them in the same room at the same time before. Not that I've really seen the falsehood. I feel like we know it's the falsehood later. When Marjorie Taylor Greene or Donald Trump give a speech and say something, and we say, wait, what was that? Wait, what? Oh, no, I didn't say that. And we'll go back and find the tape. And of course, when brought to their face, of course, it's always, oh my God, I didn't say that. This is fake. That's fake. That's the falsehood has struck again. The evil and pernicious falsehood. Oh, forces of the falsehood, and maybe their own fingertips and prints upon the scene of the crime. Is basically the vibe. Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? Donald Trump knows that the falsehood knows the shadow knows the falsehood. Could Donald Trump be the falsehood? I mean, that would be amazing. The falsehood is obviously so incredible. A master of disguise can become anyone. So I feel like there are few images that I've seen that I know of that, other than things that I'm able to share with you through the mystery font, it's difficult to apprehend, because we may have a picture that we later look at and realize, oh, no, see, by this point the falsehood had slipped in, and that wasn't Trump there, that was the falsehood. So we can always really go over that footage. How did the falsehood get in there? You can't even see him leave, because pretty soon we catch up. I mean, Donald Trump says, oh, no, I said that. There's truly a velvety touch. It's like Mel Torme has a TARDIS. And could Mel Torme be the falsehood? But there is a velvet fog, or a velvet glove cast in iron. Fog. And who is the falsehood?
And having a good relationship with Russia is a good thing, not a bad thing.
You said you have no investments in Russia, but do you owe any money to Russian individuals and institutions?
No.
None.
The primary thing I did with Russia, I bought a house in Palm Beach at a bankruptcy. It was a bankrupt, person. I bought it from the banks. I bought it for about $40 million. I sold it for $100 million to a Russian. That was probably 5 years ago, and that was primarily it.
You partnered
now,
with
will
Russians
I
on the
sell?
Soho Grand.
Will I sell? Oh, many years ago. I don't think they're Russian. I think there were other people, but there were various partners. Will I sell condos to Russians on occasion? Probably. I mean, I do that. I have a lot of condos. I do that. But I have no relationship to Russia whatsoever.
No debts.
No debts. I have very little debt to anybody. I don't need debt. It's very interesting. I'm so liquid, I don't need debt. And if I need debt, if I want debt, I can get it from banks in New York City very easily.
You know where I'm going to take this next. Americans could be assured on that if they saw your tax returns.
My tax returns are very simple. They're under a minor audit, routine audit, as they have been for many years. Every year I get audited. Now, I don't know if you get audited, but I have friends that are very wealthy that never have been audited. I say, do you get audited? I get audited every year. I'm under a routine audit, like routine. And I have been for years, every year.
But there are several years that are no longer
George,
under
here's
that
very
audit.
simple. Yeah, but they're all linked. It's called the link. It's very simple. If my audit's finished, that's great. Now, I have to tell you, I watched Mitt Romney 4 years ago. He waited till September to give him, just before the election. They made him look so bad. It was so unfair. I actually think he didn't lose because of the 47%. I think he lost because of a couple of really minor items in a tax return where he did nothing wrong. So it is unfair. But I will say, when I'm finished with the audit, I'll do it.
Richard Nixon released his even though his were under audit.
Don't use Richard Nixon as necessarily the guide, okay? I mean, you know, it's an interesting person to use, but don't use it.
This is font. Boo. What is that? Burgles? That's not Burgles. That's not Burgles. This Burgles is really unmasked. That's not Burgles, is it? Alrighty then. Oh yes, there we go. I see. We have us. The falsehood. I mean, that could be someone else. But something tells me that this might be something that's coming. I fear this is coming, and that it's something that we have to refuse or turn away. We have to say no to this. We're dealing with betrayal trauma, and the ability to recognize that this person has been harming us. We need to be aware that we have been deeply degraded. Challenging and trying to break down people's calibration and their sense of connectedness, and dehumanizing people and treating them like garbage. Telling people that they are too weak to deal with their issues, that they should tell their children the problems and the diseases never happened. Don't tell your kids about what your great-grandparents did. Don't tell your kids about what horrors we tell you not to talk about. The global majority has a real like forever credit. There is every reason to be aware. If cognizance exists, how are we not aware as white people? How are we not aware as a human race and as an American experiment that it's very clear that BIPOC Americans, indigenous people, people of color, have saved our lives as white people, have saved and allowed us to flourish here. Because if white people freak out when somebody asks you to wear a mask to save mom and dad and the community, and those are the same people saying slavery wasn't so bad, I have to say we have people who have a failure to communicate with their own adulthood, who are also under the spell of dark triad predators. There's little reason to see Marjorie Taylor Greene's lynch mob stoking terrorism, that aggressive, attacking, poisonous sideshow. We have to apprehend the falsehood. That is to say, be able to prehend and intellectually apprehend what is happening. And it is not easy. We have been betrayed, like being betrayed by a parent and being abused for years by a parent who you depend on, who will not stop doing something that breaks a person's body or mind or spirit. Will not believe that there's a person there, will not believe that there's a pain that is real. That is caustic to human minds. That creates traumatic brain injury, and it devastates executive function. That, in a sense, enslaves anyone from the trajectory their life might have. That detours and mangles potential that may be able to flourish if not under attack. I think that our system is categorically broken because it demands that we punish human vulnerability and need, and that is the opposite of human family. It's definitely the opposite of the teachings of the God that seemingly MAGA folks would be more aware of and more entrenched into the meaning. It truly is a miracle, and I think maybe about a lot of people not learning to read because of like knowing the freedom that it gives. Like if I don't get good at walking up that big hike to get higher up and higher up into the plateaus and up these buttes, and like eventually I go up an area where I'm really getting up into some high hill and mountainous terrain, and if I don't figure out how to, in whatever way I can do it, whether it's all at once or over years, work myself up to the point of competently and comfortably making it up to the top of a view, and to get there and to be so blown away with my just, human accomplishment and happiness about that, and so much more blown away by what I see at the top of this mountain. That we do not see reward that we don't have the opportunity to share. And we must believe in ourselves. We must start sometimes when we don't believe in ourselves, to start believing in ourselves, to train and remember that we can, To train and remember that we do have that skill and that talent. And now it's to train and remember that we do have that skill and talent as a humanity. We do have that skill and talent and sanction as part of the human trust, that we matter, you matter. And the kinds of things that forces of fascism are trying to dehumanize out of humanity must not be broken. We are the reality distortion fielding, and we can care for one another with equity and learning together to be a better humanity together. What is it if you are in the presence of Donald Trump and say he points into a camera knowing that you're going to be looking at the lens, and so start saying something knowing specifically that you will be looking into the lens, that once again he has targeted you. And again, wow, wait, those sound like lies, and oh God, I want to foster the idea that we might be able to look into some of those things and figure them out a bit. Like, we might be able to manage looking at and seeing what relevance and reality there is to things that are at suspect, that are at odds with what we understand or what we need. It's my understanding that Project 2025 is essentially a group of Nazis and Nazi collaborators. But I would love to be disabused of that. I simply have seen nothing but evidence that this is a truly devastating rupture of the United States that they are planning, that is online at the Project 2025 website and the Heritage Foundation. These are Nazis or Nazi collaborators, and it is time. It is time to make sure we're here for democracy. We're here to promote and to protect. Make sure that people have access to this as an amenity and resource going forward. We're not just a different flavor of country slightly if we let democracy fall. That is something that, for all of the incredible failures, there are parts of American democracy that we can, I believe, restore to everyone that should not vanish from this earth, that we can build on for everyone. That's where we need to go, I think. And indeed, versus Project 2025, these are Nazi collaborators and Nazis. Charlie Kirk and Stephen Miller are so incredibly ridiculous, and yet even more dangerous. Even more dangerous. If you want to know about either of them, if you want to know about Charlie Kirk or you want to know about Stephen Miller, know first and foremost that as ridiculous as they are maybe more dangerous. And the more ridiculous you understand them to be, it is a scary ride, because these are some of the worst people in society, or worst equipped for the roles of influence and power they glom onto. The Matt Walsh, Steven Crowder, Tucker Carlson, basically Andrew Tate with a slightly political flavor attack on honesty and fact, that whole bandwidth of just toxin. We're dealing with people knowingly spreading massive amounts of falsehood, certainly with Tucker Carlson. I don't know why he hasn't been brought up on charges of sedition. Numerous times, hundreds of times, Tucker Carlson has shown himself to be a Nazi and a Nazi supporter, and doesn't separate himself from someone who is clearly showing himself as well to be a neo-Nazi, and that is Elon Musk. That we have people who need help to have boundaries if they can incorporate them into their lives, or we need to remove them from power. Elon Musk is not welcome to tank humanity. That is not on the table. These are the findings of the Mystery Fund. Why would someone push a lie to a crowd of people that everyone can see is a lie and force and push and coerce them to believe it even though they can see it's a lie? Why would you coerce people and make them not challenge your lie? What's the point of getting people not to challenge a lie?
I made a speech. I looked out. The field was, it looked like a million and a half people. They showed a field where there were practically nobody standing there.
The new White House press secretary, Sean Spicer, gave his first press briefing. He was also highly critical of some media organisations of the way he felt they had misrepresented the number of people who'd attended Friday's inauguration ceremony.
No one had numbers because the National Park Service, which controls the National Mall, does not put any out. This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe.
It does not excuse, and you did not answer the question.
I did answer your question.
No, you did not. You did not answer
the
question of why the president asked the White House press secretary to come out in front of the podium for the first time and utter a falsehood. Why did he do that? It undermines the credibility of the entire White House press office on day one.
Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that.
This was the largest ever. This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe.
the malice of a mercenary willing to digest human beings in front of other human beings on live television is what I feel like I'm looking at. I think she would gladly eat people on live TV. I think she would prefer to eat people on live TV. I might be wrong, but I think it's time to stop saying they wouldn't do that when they tell us they would. And I think that someone who would say, in a conversation about a truly Orwellian massive lie, to introduce and say that's no big deal, it's alternative facts. It is truly diabolical, and I think we have to wonder at the psyche of this person. I think clearly Kellyanne Conway has donned the falsehood a million times in her life. And she is a bloodthirsty and murdersome mercenary. It is unlikely that she has yet to kill somebody with her own hands. I think it's unlikely. I bet she's already a murderer. I bet there's a body. I bet the same is true of Marjorie Taylor Greene. I bet the same is true of Ginny Thomas. We are dealing with dark triad predators. We are dealing with dark triad predators. It is time to take off the blinders. These are dark triad predators. And Donald Trump remains at large. That is not safe. No one on earth is safe until we successfully say no to and essentially give our permission to ourselves to say no to Donald Trump. It is apocalyptically stupid and stupefied and submitted of anybody to allow this kind of degraded treatment, this abuse, this terroristic. This is terrorism. We are experiencing terrorism from Donald Trump. He is not positioning himself as a presidential candidate. He is positioning himself as an enemy and an alternative to the United States, because you do not say, I have absolute authority, and get invited to the table. But the people who have been able to say no haven't. That is, people with potentially the responsibility to do so, for some reason didn't see a document written hundreds of years ago, a couple hundred years ago. Apparently our names aren't in the document. It doesn't say that I, Tim Cameron, have to work on a piece of art and media that would alert us to how we are not perceiving the falsehood that will destroy our planet and all of us with it, or at least the habitat that we depend on, that is part of us. We are the reality distortion fielding. We are finite. We can be erased. And the people surfing the big, shiny machines, the people surfing piles of billions of dollars like Joker cosplays and telling people who say no to their Nazism that boundaries are emotional blackmail. We are dealing with dark triad predators. Sadly, Elon Musk is a prime example. Elon Musk is a dark triad predator. There is no other way about it. He is a maniac. He is a danger to himself, and he is a danger to humanity. It is time now to stop pretending that we have time to wonder or to look away or to say he wouldn't do that. He's already doing it. This is not someone we want dealing with our minds. This is not the vandal vomiting feces from every orifice onto Twixt. This is not someone who we want implanting things in our mind. Not virtually or physically. Neither nor. It's time to wake up. Someone who is jutting his neck like a chicken, having a panic attack over hearing a boundary like stop the Nazi content and apologize for that anti-Semitic remark. That he says that that is a boundary he won't put up with, that that is emotional blackmail. To have commerce, essentially. People don't want to buy your product or interact with you because, or, advertise on your platform because you're saying anti-Semitic things and racist things and allowing racists to have free reign and bigots to have free reign. And when people say, hey, stop that intolerant, cancerous crap, you say that's emotional blackmail. You are a Nazi, and you will be removed. Your wealth will be put in trust, and you will be removed from the ability to harm people. I will be happy to help that happen. From here, we are the reality distortion fielding. Oh, cha, what, sleep. Now it's happening again. Something strange is happening again. What's happening again? I don't particularly want it to cut off the text. I also really don't want a background at all. I just want the text. So that, yeah, kind of just having a little bit of a tech issue. These things happen. They happen from time to time. Let's Take a mo. Well, I am just going to deal with it. I think it's going to be all right. I think that I can live. I'm not sure how I'm doing these other ones, how it's all working except for that. But these things just become something sometimes, and it doesn't have to be a big deal. Hey now, easy. Okay. Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. There you go, friend. Once again, just to restate, I have not heard any major changes in the lead story here from the mystery font tonight. I am checking all the feeds. It seems it remains true. And as far as I know, I'm ahead of all other news organizations and news-like source mentionaries across planet Earth. There may not be any other news organization or creative journalistic effort anywhere on Earth noting that Donald Trump remains at large. Donald Trump remains at large. That is breaking news. That it is still true that Donald Trump remains at large. And that Kellyanne Conway helped him with his first massive and apocalyptic lie. Can we afford to say he wouldn't do that ever again? Who is the falsehood? Is it possible that Donald Trump may, since the falsehood so often slips into the veneer of Donald and later is found to have somehow permuted reality, is it possible that they must have met? Could Donald Trump know something about the identity of the falsehood? That would be something he shouldn't keep from anyone. Like if he really did have, as he has claimed, if he did have any single even shred of proof of any fraud against him in 2020, anything that would have changed the election anywhere, if he had one shred of proof of that, and he didn't produce that before the election and in a timely manner, and still not to this day, the only person who would do that, it seems pretty clearly, is the maniac who's waiting to use those things. Just like when he said to Bob Woodward, I didn't want to create a panic, didn't mean to cause a panic. It was because he wanted to hold that information and what it could do and how he could dose people with a deadly disease.
Look, alternative facts are not facts. They're falsehoods.
We see someone who has never had anyone first but himself. We are dealing with dark triad predators.
This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe.
Distortion. Fielding. We are the reality. Distortion. Fielding. falsehood will sow doubt. Intuition knows things. We are the reality distortion fielding. Yes. Interesting that. Now what are we... yes. Yes. Today is the solstice. We'll see. We may stay up. I suspect I'm going to get some rest and begin the day somewhat early because it is going to be an interesting day here in the Camera Obscura, and hopefully we'll have at least one visit from a neighbor artist or someone in some way, neighborly and artistic or appreciative of art or willing to talk about such things. And again, let's make sure we're aware, top news of the day. Donald Trump remains at large, even though he threatened us terroristically that he would keep us in suspense. And when we failed to gather executive function to keep him from being allowed onto the 2016 ballot, he began, during that time, an abusive relationship that remains and worsens to this day. We are the reality distortion fielding here at the Mystery Font, and you are the reality distortion fielding wherever you are upon it. I love you and I'm in love with you, and it is going to be all right if we're aware that we are in an abusive relationship. You are in an abusive relationship. Shocking boundary violations are one common grooming tactic of a narcissist or dark triad personality. If someone in your life points into a camera knowing you'll be looking at the view screen and pulls their finger like a trigger, looking into your eyes, saying, I could shoot someone in the street and not lose anyone, it is a good indicator of a bad situation. You are in an abusive relationship. Who has leveraged and climbed upon a fog of falsehood? Who has donned the falsehood? Who is the falsehood? We'll be back later on in the day with more from the Mystery Font.